Everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation, and today I've got Reed Little from the Contrarians back to the channel where we are going to review the latest Deep Purple album, the 24th studio platter from Deep Purple, and the album is Splat. So, good morning, Reed Little. How are you, mate?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you for inviting me. Always good to talk about the Deep Purple royal family.
It only seemed like yesterday that we were doing a review of Equals One, which came out in 2024. So time flies, doesn't it?
It does, and we thought that would probably be the last album. And now Ian Gillan's saying, hey, maybe we'll do another one in 2027.
Absolutely. So, I'm of the view that they'll just keep pushing out input until they drop off the perch. So I think it's wonderful. They're getting out music for us to review, enjoy, savor in their twilight years. And look, the whole purpose of this is a review. We are going to talk songs. We're going to talk performances, all things Deep Purple. And as usual, at the end of the review, our synopsis of what we think of the album. All right, let's get stuck into the review, Reed. First up, can I say that this is one of the best album covers from Deep Purple in a long time. I really like the packaging. It's got that futuristic look. I'll put photos up. When I was looking at this, and I'll show you the insert because I've got the album. So I've got the 2 LP 45, which is really unique. The sound, the fidelity is fantastic. And there's a lyric sheet, a lyric book. And to me, it kind of reminded me of that Ridley Scott alien movie, Prometheus, if you recall the album, the poster of that science fiction movie. But it's kind of loosely constructed as a concept album about the end of humanity, and a lot of songs that just cover at the end of the world and reassessing the world, the universe, the life. Very much a deep thinking album, or maybe not so deep as we get into the songs. But Reed, I think Deep Purple have been criticised over the last couple of albums that their packaging is kind of awful, a little bit AI and a little bit thin. And I think that, the whole presentation, the aesthetics of this album are really top notch. I really like what they've done. So whatever they've done, and even the videos, the promo videos for the 3 singles are quite impressive. What do you think of the aesthetics of the album?
Oh, I love it. We all agreed that Equals One was a terrible album cover. Just the black and white with the equal one on the front. I mean, really didn't seem like anybody put a lot of thought into that. There is a lot more that went into this. Even in the CD, you still get the one image for the cover and then the other image for the insert book. Third
it's
image
nice.
on the back of that.
It's
so
nice.
Yeah, you get a very nice physical package with it, which is good.
It's like those 70s pulp science fiction novels. Isaac Asimov, you get these really lurid science fiction, futuristic type of cover art. I like it. I like it a lot.
I was going to say, it really strikes me as a prog rock album cover, right?
Yes.
Like an old, although it's not a watercolor like a Roger Dean, it's got that prog feel to it. And I think that actually reflects the music on the album pretty well, too.
Yeah, we shall see. One more thing, the name of the album, it's still attracting a little bit of criticism. I saw one commentator have a go at it being called Splat. To me, I think it sort of aligns with the themes of this album as we will get into it. But, one of their last couple of albums have been very much, impact words like whoosh.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on Splat? Do you think that's a little bit throwaway, or?
Well, actually, I think it's a step up from Equals One, which just was not a good name for an album. And if the album is loosely themed on the end of the world, the picture, you can kind of imagine it's not floating, it's falling. So Splat is what happens at the end of the world. If you're an 80-year-old guy writing songs about the end of the universe, Splat is like the finale. So I think it is thematically appropriate. It's a little tongue in
Yeah,
cheek, but that's the Deep Purple experience.
yeah, absolutely. I don't have an issue with it. So I think we give the aesthetics, the title a bit of a tick. I'm behind it. I'm really sold on it. And when it came out on social media, it was shared about 2 months ago. I was all for it. I
Mhm.
thought it was a huge step up. All right, mate. Let's tuck into the songs. That's what people want to hear us talk about. So the first one is "Arrogant Boy." All 3 minutes and 18 seconds. This was the first single off the album. I did a standalone review on Rock Daydream Nation. I really, really loved it. And I'll talk more about it, but I'll defer to you. What do you think of this song?
So another really strong opener. Deep Purple has a history of picking good opening tracks. They This song gives you a lot of the album experience in one track. It has just enough nods back to the classic Deep Purple sound to make you think of classic Deep Purple. It opens with driving guitar and a Hammond organ sound. Although I don't think Don Airey plays an actual Hammond organ. He plays a keyboard that sounds like a Hammond organ. Um, and then you get Gillan's surreal lyrics on top of that. But that only goes for a minute. At exactly 1 minute in, they actually switch off of that classic Deep Purple hard rock sound and move into a much more modern, like progressive rock sound, which is frankly a lot more reminiscent of the Steve Morse era than I think Deep Purple want to admit. I think that Ian Gillan knows that if he says, we still love the Steve Morse era and we're never going to get away from that for the rest of our careers, that it will turn off a lot of people. But that's the reality of it, is they are still doing that jazz fusion-y progressive rock like they did with Steve Morse. Simon is very much that kind of player. Don Airey is very much that kind of player. You get a lot of unison lines between the keyboard and the guitar, which again, Don brings that in from his old time with Gary Moore, like in Coliseum 2. I think Don Airey was in Coliseum 2. So you also get Ian singing, at least in this song, in his very comfortable range. He's no longer screaming screaming the high notes. He's not trying to be like a Glenn Hughes who he's still proving that he can hold that high range. But his voice sounds really strong. He sounds good. Hard to believe that he's 80 years old. And
Absolutely.
the production, just like the last album, the production pretty much puts key guitar and vocals equal. The drum pace is still pace. He's swinging, but the song is not. It's a pretty straightforward rocker. And then I have a very minor complaint that comes up. Kind of, we'll discuss it more as we go later, but I don't think there's enough Roger Glover. I think that the bass is too far down in the mix, and I want more bottom end.
Yeah, look, I think this opening track hits you between the eyes. You've got this freight train chugger rhythm playing of Simon McBride, and he uses that sort of that style of rhythm a few times throughout the album. And it's got the really hard, punctuated keyboard stabs of Don Airey. It's a real muscular opening to the album, full of urgency. It makes the listener wonder where things will go, and then it sort of segues into a kind of a really familiar Deep Purple riff. And I said in my show, my standalone show, and I'll say it again, it kind of reminded me of the riff Hard Loving Woman off House of Blue Light. Listen to that. It's neither here or there. Then midway, the band invites you into a neoclassical melody line. You could say ELP, with Airey and McBride flexing their virtuoso muscles. I love the whirlwind guitar line at 2 minutes and 8 seconds. and all precision. You've got Aries playing, building the tension, and then it goes straight back into the verse. I think the song represents the album cover. This is the motif song on the album. Gillan's voice is fragile, conversational a little bit, but within the boundaries of the song, it works. So there's, I think, as you see, as we get in the deeper into the album, sometimes I think his vocals frailty may be a little bit of a negative, but sometimes the frailty works for the benefit of the song. But I think it's an outstanding opening track, and it was a fine way to launch the album on the whole marketing thing with Deep Purple with this particular song. So I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Diablo. I said that this song reminded me of maybe a Leo off Machine Head. This is their 2026 version. Over to you, Reed. What do you think of this song?
I'm always hesitant to compare it too much to 70s Deep Purple because there are nods to that. It's a little bit of seasoning, but the music is so not 1970s Deep Purple. I will say this is probably the most swinging track on the album. Ian Pace is swinging hard. But on some of the songs, Ian is swinging, and the rest of the song's pretty straightforward. This whole song is very, very swinging. It's got a great guitar riff. It's got these very surreal lyrics. It has a really strange, I'm not exactly sure what the musical term is. I think it's the bridge, where it suddenly completely changes style before they go into the chorus. And you only get that once in the song, and I was expecting them to do a repeat of that later. So it's arranged kind of oddly. And I find the solo section really interesting. It's broken up into keyboard, guitar, guitar, keyboard, guitar, guitar. And it's produced so that the keyboard is in the middle. The first guitar solo is panned hard right, and the second guitar solo is panned hard left, and it has a very different tonality. So it sounds like they've got two completely different guys doing guitar solos. And I'm not really sure why. That's an odd choice. It works. I mean, it provides some interest. It breaks it up so that you're not just listening to this really long solo. But that's a really strange thing to do with the production.
Well, it's Simon McBride having a guitar duel with Keith Urban. So Keith Urban owns a studio in Nashville, which Deep Purple recorded, and they invited him to play on the song, and I think it's a highlight of the song. It's an all-out dueling guitar war. Yeah, I love it. The performance, the band performance on this song is really top notch. Ian Pace is in the groove. He's the full-on groove meister. You can actually hear Glover on this song. His bass is bubbling along. I think the only weakness on this particular song is Gillan's vocals are a little bit pinched. They're a little bit pitchy. It's a bit all over the shop, and even more conversational. It sort of reminds me of the Gillan band era of the early 80s. Look, I was really slightly critical of this song, that I didn't warm to it, mainly because of Gillan's vocals when the single came out. This was the second single, but I warmed up to it considerably a lot more. But to me, the highlight is that guitar duel between Keith Urban and Simon McBride. But who would have thought you'd hear a Keith Urban on a Deep Purple album?
Yeah, okay. So I was going to say I had never noticed that, but that's because it's not in the listing for the song. They've got one little note at the very start that says Keith Urban on guitar track 2. I hadn't even seen that. So I guess that explains the whole thing of why they've got the sound of two different guitar players.
Yep. But Reed, you got to admit, the band absolutely swings on this song. There's a lot of groove to many of the songs on this album, and this is probably one of the more swing-tastic songs on the album. And Pace, he doesn't miss a beat. He is still the premier rock drummer. The writer. So this song starts off really strange. It sounds starts off all craft work, all space age with Don Airy, and then it
Right.
goes into this deep bluesy rocker that has a fair amount of bite, groove, and a little bit sassy. What do you think of this song?
So I like this song. I think it's strong. It's an interesting concept. The writer, of course, referring to a tour writer, the addendum to the performance contract, where in addition to the fee for performance, artists asks for all kinds of crazy stuff. The most famous example being the No Brown M&Ms writer that people found out about in the 80s. And now I'm sorry, I'm having a brain fart. I can't remember if that was Van Halen or Ozzy Osbourne, but
Van Halen with the M&Ms.
yeah. So artists can ask for all kinds of things on the writer, and in this case, it's a song about a very egotistical performer. Ian Gillan, perhaps ironically, loves to write lyrics about egotistical people, which
Yeah,
given that Ian has no small ego himself, I've always found that to be kind of interesting. Kind of wonder who he's taking pot shots at here, but in this case, the tour writer includes, a spiritual guru and, all kinds of real bizarre mental and physical or mental and spiritual support apparatus. And he says, the performer just thinks that, oh, what's the lyric? He doesn't have to be priceless just now. No, don't call me precious. Priceless is just fine. That's the lyric. Yeah, it's way out there. It's not as strong a riff song, but it's got a great melody. And I will say, there isn't a song on the album where Ian's vocals actually kind of bothered me. I think it fits in the style. Obviously it's a progression. Again, the man's 80 years old. He's going to be 81 in a month.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I will say, once again, I don't like the bass. It's so weird to me because Bob Ezrin has done such a wonderful job producing this album. The bass tone on this record is very soft and farty. And it just doesn't cut through such a busy record. You've got layers and layers and layers of keyboards. You've got layers and layers and layers of guitar. And then you have this soft, diffuse bass that just can't hold up. And I don't know why they made that choice. I would have definitely have gone for a different bass tone.
Isn't it funny that we pick up on things and we hold it and we run with it in a listening experience across an album? I don't have any issues with the bass. I know it's there, but its lack of bass, or maybe it's not up in the mix, was nothing that I considered in my critique of this album, my review. This is deep bluesy. It's got lots of groove, and I love the tongue-in-cheek lyrics. I had a smile on my face, and this is where he's on the money and he's really sharp, and he's being full-on ironic. I think he knows, he's got a big ego, and I think he knows he's being ironic here. So it's a cheeky nod to his past and what has gone before him. And I think he's at his point in his lyric writing where he's totally unfiltered. I think where he writes lyrics, I think it's a lot of stream of consciousness that happens on the spot. I don't think he's a lyric writer that he takes his time on a particular song and he'll construct lyrics over, say, a period of a week. I think it's a writing session and he'll get it done. He'll get the pad, he'll get the pen, he'll write it down, and it's whatever comes out. And sometimes it's a hit, and sometimes it's a miss. It's a little bit of rocks and diamonds. This one, I think he's really on the money, and he's quite sharp. But I love the guitar solo with McBride. It's probably my favorite guitar solo on the album. It's got a really dirty tone, and it just gives a little bit of sass, even more sass to the song than it actually has. So far I'm enjoying the album, Reed. I think this is a mighty fine song. We'll go to the next one, the Lunatic. To me, this song starts off similar sonically, melodically to Arrogant Boy. What do you think of this song?
So I think this is one where they're applying a little bit more of that classic Deep Purple spice. So at this point in their career, Deep Purple are very adept at kind of balancing, even though they will always be known most for those early 70s albums, they've been putting out other music for a very long time. And they have a lot of, a lot of people that bought Machine Head back in 1972 or 73, they're not buying the new records, but the people that were buying the Morse albums are buying the new records. So they're kind of juggling back and forth with just enough classic to keep the older fans engaged, but also keeping their Morse era people engaged. I like this song a lot. And this one, I'm going to talk about the bass again. It is interesting. And I'll just say the first time I listened to this album from start to finish, I until it got to the last song, I went, I never heard the bass. So I had to go back and listen to it again, making myself listen for the bass. In this song, the bass is actually providing the kind of chord pad that you would normally have the keyboard player do. So it's a very different style of playing. I mean, he's not playing chords, he's playing individual notes, but he's providing that kind of sonic foundation that normally you would have had Don Airey do, but Don Airey is so busy on this album that now Roger Glover is kind of filling that role. So again, I find that interesting. He's higher in the mix, but I still wanted more. Definitely I wanted a sharper sound, but again, good song.
What do you think of the guitar tone on this song? I think this is definitely a little bit spikier, a bit harder, a bit harsher, and it really suits the song. Do you like the guitar tone on this song?
I do. There's a song coming up where I've got a few more specific guitar tone notes, but Simon McBride recently has angered some people by saying he stopped using tube amps and now he's gone all digital. Lots of performers are going all digital. If you're a guitar player, that's this huge debate as to whether digital or the old classic 100-watt tube amps are better. But Simon gets a great tone. He's such a fast player. He's so notey, but you can hear all of the notes really, really well. He sounds fantastic on the fast passages.
Yeah, he's very articulate.
The best things for me instrumentally is the unison keyboard and guitar. Those pieces are always outstanding.
And they're doing it a lot. That's what I reckon. It's out of the early 70s prog book. You got the melody line, you share the same highway, the same pathway. Airey shines on this. Nice solo work. This is one of my favorite songs in the album. I think it's really hooky. And I like how it's got a slight Eastern mystic melodic flavor to it. Lyrically, Gillan's quite profound. He's talking about the rule breakers and society's tendency to label the rule breakers or people that are outside the box as lunatics. Some wags have said that maybe he's referring to Ritchie Blackmore in the song Lunatic with a mind of his own. I don't know. You be the judge. But no, I think this is one of the best songs on the album. Like it a lot. Yeah. Then we go to the number 5 track, The Only Horse in Town. This is a song that features lyrics that detail a surrealistic exchange between a human and a horse. A bit of a bizarre scenario provided by Ian Gillan. What do you think of this song?
So this was the point where I started really kind of struggling for things to say about certain songs because there's only so many times I can say, man, the keyboard part on this is really good, or boy, Simon puts in a great solo on this one. Um, I will say, I think this is another one of their classic sounding songs. You open up with that Hammond organ sound and then going into the unison keyboard and guitar. So they're still keeping the old punters, the whatever of them are still around, happy. The lyrics are pretty weird, but that's all right. Again, if you are a lyric person, it gives you some more interest. You know, you keep the book handy so that you can read the lyrics and say, what the hell is he talking about? Oh, well, that's weird. But it's a good track.
Yeah, I think maybe he's doing an allegory about the unpredictability of the future and having an open mind. A lot of people have different interpretations on the lyrics. Look, I think, to be honest, the lyrics on this album, when he's sharp, he's razor sharp. But there are some lyrics on this album, which we will cover, where I think this stream of consciousness, he probably needed a bit more of a filter. But I don't mind this album, this particular song. I think this is the most conventional song on the album. And if this was brought out in the 80s, you would almost say that Deep Purple were angling for a bit of a radio hit. It's a little, it's going towards AOR. It has some pop sensibilities and some very subtle melodic hooks. I love Simon's guitar solo. That is melodic, not flashy, got great tone, and it services the song beautifully. So he has got good judgment in regards to what does he wield out of his armory. Do I go over the top or do I work within the song? And this is an example where he's just got a very tasty solo that just comes in, comes out, and it just suits the song to a T. Do you agree with me? This is probably the most commercial, accessible song. If we were going to talk about the olden days of radio format and getting Deep Purple back on the radio, I'm thinking 1980, mid to late 80s.
I don't know. So in terms of commercial sound, I would probably say The Beating of Wings, which we'll get to in a little bit, being a little bit more of a laid back kind of song. And I think the next song actually has potential because of a comparison I'll make when we discuss the track. So I hadn't really thought of this one in terms of a radio track, but I'll think about that the next time I listen to it and see what I think.
Sacred Land. So Don Airey, good old Don Airey, he brings out the Celtic keyboard line at the start of the song. And when I heard it, I go, oh no, is this going to be Copperhead Road or is this going to be Belfast, Child by Simple Minds? Over to you, Reed Little.
So yeah, I actually, as this song started, I actually thought, are they doing Egypto at the start of this song? It takes a bit to settle into Celtic, but this song kind of, I really like it because I think it's actually much more rainbow sounding than Deep Purple sounding. But if you're going to compare it to a point in the Deep Purple catalog, I would say it falls into kind of the same area as Perfect Strangers. And that made me think of, in 1983, Perfect Strangers was everywhere on the radio and on MTV.
At 84, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a song that I could see back in the 80s as being kind of their representative track.
Well, a little bit of context what this song's about. This is the story of two aging Scottish Highland clan leaders who have spent years fighting each other, and after an extended period of war, lay down their swords on a holy stone. And, they put their swords down and cross and talk about the futility and endless cycle of war and feuding. They kind of make peace. So that's paraphrasing Ian Gillan's words about what the lyrics mean. The thing that spoils this song for me, and this is my, how you've got your bass bit? I have my little bit of a beef about some of the choices, the keyboard choices that Don Airy brings, and he brings out this out of space Lido shuffle Moog analog synthesizer sound that just overplays it. Does this little tinkly solo. It's like Lido shuffle. His tendency to use that same tone marred the last album Equal One on a couple of tracks, and here he is at it again. Kind of annoyed me. It just seems out of place. You've got this Celtic sounding melodic song, a bit of a sludgy guitar. You've got this riff, and Gillan's telling this story, and then he brings out this really inappropriate type of keyboard solo. It just marred it for me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you agree with me on that point?
I do. I actually made a note on this song that it's a demonstration of just how many keyboard tones there are on this album. It's like they just let Don Airy go absolutely hog wild in the studio, whatever he wanted to throw on. So Hammond, and there's piano sounds later, and the Kraftwerk electronica thing, and then he's got I wouldn't have thought of Moog, but fine, I'll take that. He's got tons and tons of keyboard sounds, and he's going to use them all. So it's pretty natural that you'll find one that maybe you don't care for eventually.
It's like one of those keyboards that you got as a kid, and you could press a button and it'll give you a particular tone. And so he's going across and pressing the next button on the next song. Oh, yes, I'll do Space Age for this one. And then...
Right.
I think Deep Purple is suited best with a keyboard that has that classic Hammond sound or piano, because it's fatter. It has a fatter sound. When you go into sounds that are synthy, and that's what John Lord was experimenting in the late 80s, it sounds thin. When I just did a show a couple of months ago about that atrocious live album, Nobody's Perfect, that marred a lot of the interpretations of some of their classic songs, where John Lord was bringing out all these modern synthy sounds. It just sounded really thin. Deep Purple deserves these really big, broad keyboard sounds. And anyway, that's my views on this. I think it's just one line, and it just marred the song for me. I just thought it was completely out of the box. But anyway, onwards and upwards, we will continue. The Beating of Wings. What do you think?
So this it's the second most swinging track on the album. This is as close as we're going to get to like a Mark III. It's not really funk or soul in the way that you would have gotten from Coverdale and Hughes, but it's the closest to that. It's not a slow song. There aren't any truly slow songs on the album, but it does have a much more laid back kind of feel. So, which I guess is a good point to say. I like the sequencing on the album. I think there have been a lot of very driving rockers. They're breaking it up with the Sacred Land, with the Celtic, and then going into this kind of funkier track. So they're mixing it up, keeping a good variety of stuff. It's not one of my favorite tracks on the album, but I think it's a solid song.
It's very atmospheric, paces in the groove. Don Airy uses a keyboard tone that's appropriate. And Gillan's voice it's right in the pocket. He plays within his range, and he delivers some really warm vocal tones. Reading the lyrics, I think this is like a tribute to his late wife, Bron. I will be wondering where you will be sleeping tonight. One of the lyrics, if you just look at it, I just think it's like a man who's lost his wife, and he's just reminiscing and just wondering where she is in the spirit world. I think it's one of the best songs on the album. McBride delivers some really tasty bluesy licks, and I think this is kind of a long-distant cousin of Wasted Sunsets or Perfect Strangers, full of yearning and melancholy. I think this is a real surprise song, Beating of Wings, one of my favourites.
All
right, go to the next one, Guilt Trippin'. I'll say it straight off the bat. I think this is Deep Purple at their most progressive best. What do you think?
Definitely. And again, so new keyboard sound. We're going to start with piano this time. So Don Airy still rolling out the new sounds. Um, once so we it's naked piano to start with, and then once the guitar line kicks in, he goes back to a Hammond sound, and you get more of that classic Purple sound. For me, the real interesting thing about this song is Gillan's vocal, where he's not only singing in this very exaggerated kind of sneering vocal tone, there's a high octave over the vocal. I don't know if that's another human voice or if it's like a synthesizer or they're just using a harmonizer on his vocal track, but it provides a high octave over the vocal. You can almost not hear it, but it makes it extra grating. It's designed to give you this sense of unease when he's singing the verse. And I thought that was very, very interesting. Not necessarily pleasant, but interesting. It's an attention getter.
I think it's brave. He's singing with he's bringing out the banshee semi falsetto, and there's some double tracking. This is an 80-year-old. He's not afraid to experiment and push the envelope. Um, I mean, the previous song that I covered, which was The Beating of Wings, he's singing in, his range, and it's all very warm. And then the next one, he's singing with aggression. Again, this harks back to the ramshackle days of Gillan band where everything was on the table.
Right.
Musically, you just put it on the table and it goes splat. I just thought of that then. He's doing it again. He's just, I think it's brave, and I put my hands together. On social media, this song got a lot of flack because of the vocals, and they said, I heard the vocals and I just cannot like it. I think it's great. I love Don Airy's classical work on this. And he's playing the neoclassical guitar, not guitar, the keyboard lines. And
Right.
then McBride's matching the piano riff, and then Whooshka, the band, comes into it with this deep, gnarly, Deep Purple riff. Halfway through the song, it does go into Yes ELP territory. A lot of Don Airy does this really fanciful, trilly keyboard solo, and for some reason, it reminded me of Mike Garson from the Spiders of Mars. So when he was on stage with David Bowie and he'd go off a little bit, it kind of reminded me
Right.
of that. Ian Gillan says the lyrics are, it's a bizarre story between God and Charles Darwin having a drink in a pub and talking about how things have not really worked out the way they planned. So I think I like it. I like the lyrics. Gillan's asking some serious questions on this album, and I think this is one of it. They're near the end of the world, and you've got, a meeting between God and Charles Darwin. Alrighty, so we go into the next one, Scribbling Gibberish. What do you think of this song?
So I actually really dig this song. It reminds me of almost like a space truckin' kind of opening. First, just the way he spells Scribbling Gibberish kind of reminds you, there's no G. Well, I guess there's a G at the start of gibberish. That was a stupid statement. But there's no, he drops the G off the end of scribbling. It's a little bit slower, and I find that songs that are just a little bit slower, it's so much easier to really feel the beat. And I think this one has got fantastic swing drums in it. So, like I said, there's only so many times I can say, man, Don Airy's playing great. Simon McBride's playing great. They're playing great on every song. But this one, I love the feel of it. I just love how it sits back in the pocket and just grooves. So I really dig this song.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I love that for most part, Don Airy does these wonderful dive-bombing Hammond squalls. And McBride's got this deep, heavy, repetitive one-note riff, and then it goes into this familiar Deep Purple run. Again, Don Airy wheels out the Lido Shuffle Moog synth for another solo. I just wish he'd parked that. We've heard it too much, Don. Enough. The song's interesting. I think it's frustration. It's a man looking back at where language is and technology is at this moment in time, and how it has either evolved or devolved. Like there's, lyrics like, another crappy matrix I can't understand. I'll prove I'm human, show you I'm a man. Can't see those traffic lights, greasy bikes or steps. Any more of that and I will wring your bloody neck. Bit of a reference to an old Deep Purple song. But yeah, I think it's like Ian Gillan at 80 or 81, looking back at, how technology has moved so much since the evolution of this band, and, making some sharp social observations. So this is a band that has something to say. They're just not resting on their laurels. And, Deep Purple could just regurgitate Machine Head 2 or Fireball or In Rock, but they're moving. They're doing something that's inventive. And at least you've got to tip your hat with Ian Gillan with these lyrics. Sometimes they may be clumsily worded. Maybe it's a little bit more of a word salad that you'd like, but at least he's got something to say. He's trying to say something. And I give that a big tick. Jessica's Bra. So this is an interesting song, Reed, because it came about due to a misspelling. It was originally going to be called Jessica's Bar. And when you look at the lyrics, it's more thematically aligned with talking about characters that are inhabiting a bar or a pub. But it's evolved into its own little tangent off the misspelling of Jessica's Bra. Anyway, over to you. What do you think of this song?
Yeah, honestly, I think the lyrics are, I don't know, I thought about them a long time. This is one the lyrics really stand out. He actually makes, even in the lyrics, he says, the sign with the misspelling, so that he cues you into it's you figure out pretty quickly it's Jessica's Bar and not Jessica's Bra. And then you just get these little slice of life lyrics about various people doing things in the bar. The guy sipping water through a straw in the corner. You got to keep your eye on him because you never know what he's going to get up to. And I can't decide if it's brilliant or completely throwaway. There isn't a lot to it, but it's, I don't know. I tend to fall more on the throwaway side, but it's not offensive. I mean, I guess maybe you could get something deeper out of it. It's not one of my favorite tracks. It's fine. But the wordplay, Jessica's Bra, Jessica's Bar, is kind of the most clever thing about it. At the end he says, and tell everybody you had, a fabulous time in Jessica's Bra. I mean,
yeah,
it's not the most stellar wordplay.
Well, when I was saying that he just does a stream of consciousness and the words come out in one sitting, this is an example on the worst side of it, the wrong side of the ledger. I think it's clunky, it's wordy, and it definitely overwhelms the song. Loosely it talks about the story of an underground bar with the assortment of the wacky characters that inhabit the space. Musically, it's classic Deep Purple, has a real driving riff, and it has that English classic rock sound that I really dig. Don Airy, again, his plays the piano on this one, and a verse between Honky Tonk, Oscar Peterson, and a bit of Gershwin. So that Don Airy is just putting everything out there. You want a bit of this, I'll put a bit of that.
Yeah.
Third Call. What do you think of this song?
So Third Call is interesting by way of comparison to the Equals One album. So after listening to Whoosh, back when Whoosh came out, and then Equals One, I was surprised at how much sexual content there is on Equals One. It's the horniest album that Ian Gillan had done in decades. And then you get to Splat, and there's very, very little of that type of lyric until we get to this song, which is basically about a booty call. So it's his, I guess maybe you just can't help it. He had to do a song about sex someplace, and this is the song that you get. This is the a song that I really like Simon McBride's guitar tone. He's got a phaser effect of some sort. It might possibly be a univibe, but I think it's a phaser on the verse. So it provides this kind of swooshing sound to the guitar, but then on his solo, he doesn't use it so that you get a much cleaner solo sound. But I think it's a pretty straightforward song. It's got great guitar playing on it, obviously. And I'm again not one of the deeper lyrics, but I was just surprised that it's the only song on the album about sex.
Yeah, well, if it's the end of the world, it's a component that you have to talk about and you have to cover. I like this song a lot. I think it's really subtle. It's laid back, atmospheric. It has almost a swampy Louisiana Gothic feel to it. The song describes temptation and an illicit love affair. It's like Gillan at age 80 has had this lucid dream of an ex-lover, a memory, and it's inspired him to croon. It's the most croontastic song on the album in respect of his vocals. They're very fragile, but they suit the song perfectly. Nothing is overplayed here. It works perfectly in the framework of the song. I think this has got Pace's best drumming on the album. Listen to the fills. They're inventive, surprising, and always in the pocket. Man, this guy's on it. He's still at the top of his game. You know, read little. Ian Pace, listen to this song. This is the best drumming on any of the songs on this album. My new movie. So Ian Gillan described this song as being about reminiscing about starting a band, having dreams, putting on a show. You know, the metaphor of let's put on a show, let's make a movie, start working on the plot, let's go for it. What do you think of this song?
I think it's good. I'm sorry. I would love to have deep thoughts on this track. I just don't. At this point in the album, there's been so much like this avalanche of guitar and keyboards and lyrics. This song, I'm like, this song is fine. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about this song. It's good. I like it, but I don't have any deep thoughts.
Yeah. So one of your regular things that when we've done lots of shows is fatigue.
Yeah.
So maybe it comes across as a bit fatiguing. It seems a bit musically routine. To me, I've listened to this song a few times, but it doesn't sort of click in. I think as a song, it doesn't quite hang together. It's a little bit ad hoc. I can imagine that maybe it's a song that was constructed or came out of a jam in the studio. You know, Don Airy injecting a little bit of Bach, Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring into my new movie makes me think that it's a little bit of, I don't know, maybe they were running out of ideas. It's not one of my favorite songs on the album. I think it's a little bit of a throwaway.
Your filler, yeah.
All right, number 13, Lucky 13, is the final song on the album, Splat. And can I say straight off the bat, this does sound like a final song. It's got that sort of drama, the way it's arranged. It feels like in the track listing, this is the song that deserves to be the last song on the album. What do you think of the song Splat?
So I think it's a strong closer. I think it's interesting that this is the second album in a row where they've put the title song as the last song. I don't know what that says exactly about the where they're sequencing these things. Again, if you think of the splat is the very, very final thing that happens, so it makes sense. You know, at these guys' age, you have to think that they're looking at every album they do as this is our last album. And if we get to do another album, fine. But if not, this is very likely it's much more likely that this is the last album they'll ever do than that they do another album. Although I would love for them to do another album. So I'm going to go back to my theme of the bass because this song opens with prominent bass guitar. It is the song on which the bass gets the biggest feature of any song on the album. So in fact, after listening to the entire album the first time and going, where's Roger Glover? This is the album where finally you're like, oh, there he is. Oh, boy, do I hate this bass tone. And again, it's so diffuse and farty. I just can't get into it.
Is it too funkadelic for you? Because the bass line it's got that fuzzy 1970s bass line, like George. It's like out of a George Clinton album. What you know?
It's not sharp enough. And for the type of playing that he does, which is very rhythmic, he needs a sharper attack. I don't know. It's almost like the difference between maybe, the difference between playing with a pick and playing with your fingers. It's too soft. It doesn't work for the music for me. But after listening to this track, I at least got that tone in my ears, and then I was able to listen to it from the start and go, oh, okay, well, there he is. I just don't like it. And that's my biggest complaint with this whole album. Maybe it won't have that effect on other people, but I was constantly thinking I don't like the bass tone on this album. Other than that, it's a great song.
Yeah, I like how Don Airey brings out this interesting clavinet sounding keyboard line, a little bit of Stevie Wonder. Look, I heard a little bit of early 1970s, and then the song takes a left-hand turn and it goes all classic pop whimsy. It kind of dare I say, a little bit of Beatles. It's injects a lot of different elements into this song. McBride guitar playing, surgically precise, lots of feel. I think it's a winner. It's a fine way to end the album, and I like the bass on this song. I really do. I love that 70s fuzzy, gnarly bass line. So, Splat. Well, there you have it, folks. We have reviewed each and every song. We've given it a bit of a deep dive. I think I'll defer to you, Mr. Little, and tell us what you think of this album.
I think it's a fantastic album. Again, and try to organize my thoughts a little better. Even if you divorce it from the idea of these guys have been making records since 1970, I know Deep Purple existed before 1970, but, this band had not existed until 1970. Well, it hadn't existed until much more recently than that with all their current members. But nonetheless, that's a lot of history. And it's rare for artists to be putting out consistently strong work after that much. I think of it like it's like a gemstone, right? It's been polished for 56 years. All of the rough edges are worn off. And you can get a very safe sound, and Deep Purple avoids that, and they turn in a great album. I think Bob Ezrin, all of the Bob Ezrin produced albums are great. He's just as old as they are. And he's doing a fantastic job on the production. The songwriting takes chances. The lyrics are just as weird as Ian ever was. His lyrics have always been strange. And they're just as strange now. So I think it's a fabulous album. Like I said, even taken out of context of this band has been making albums for 56 years. But when you add that in, it's remarkable. So I give it all the credit in the world. I think it's a 9 out of 10 album. I think it's fantastic. And at least right now, it's recency bias, but this is going to sit as one of my favorite Deep Purple albums, I think.
Nice. I think this, like Ian Gillan said, is the best album that he's done since the 70s. I still think Perfect Strangers is the benchmark, last great Deep Purple album. But definitely in any album they've done since Perfect Strangers, this is right up the top. I probably like Equals One marginally a little bit better because there were songs on that album that had a lot more emotional punch to the point of, kind of really, I think Ian Gillan was really digging deep vocally, lyrically, and that was just an absolute rip snorter. But I like what he's doing on this album. It's profound, it's conceptual. He's at a point of his life that he's looking back and questioning the life, the world, the universe. And there's not many classic rock bands that still do that and are so emotionally and lyrically and musically creative. I think some of the musical choices I do have a slight umbrage with, and I've discussed that during the course of the show, but it's a mighty fine album. I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. And, I've played it quite a bit. And I think it's going to be one of those albums like Equals One, where, you review it, you put it in the cabinet and you forget about it. But I think this one's got some legs. And look, I recommend it. I really do. It's one of the strongest albums they've put out for a considerable period of time.
If we compare it, if we compare it to their peers, because old people putting out rock is still a thing, but probably Deep Purple, Alice Cooper, and the Rolling Stones are all fighting it out to be the oldest people putting out albums. And between the three of them, I think Deep Purple owns it.
Yeah. And you've got to tip your hat to Bob Ezrin, because they've synced into a partnership that, they're on the same page. There was some production choices that they used in Morse. And even, I do take umbrage with some of the Roger Glover produced albums, but sonically he's really, I don't know. I don't know whether in the studio he's an interventionist type of producer in respect of ideas, or is he Rick Rubin and just lays back and just lets the songs breathe. But whatever he does, he's really sort of crystallized with what the essence of what Deep Purple sounds like. And, I don't think they've had that sort of a relationship. And, you'd have to go back to the Martin Birchley years, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and interesting point of comparison, because Ezrin is still producing Alice Cooper too. And between Alice Cooper and Deep Purple, I think the Deep Purple albums consistently sound better.
Yeah. So there you go, folks. We think this is a winner. It's worth purchasing. And Reed Little, thank you very much. It was a joy to talk to you and go through the tracks on this album. I think we both have different sort of takes on it, but we all come to the same conclusion. This is a high quality. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. Please put your comments of what you think of this album. Tell us what you think the last great Deep Purple album is. I say it's Perfect Strangers. Maybe you have a different opinion. Maybe you think this is the definitive last hurrah great Deep Purple album. We love reading your comments. But one thing's for sure, Reed Little and I will be back talking all things rock on Rock Daydream Nation. All the best, Reed, and cheers.
Cheers, Peter.